You know that feeling when you think your life can't possibly get any worse. And then boom, the universe decides to play the cruelest joke on you? Well, that's exactly what happened to me last Tuesday morning. I'm Emma Harrison, by the way. And trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this story because it's about to get absolutely wild. But before we dive in, hit that like button if you've ever had your entire world turned upside down in a single moment. I have a feeling you're going to relate to this more than you think, Dot. So there I was, sitting in this sterile white room at Sterling Medical Center in Los Angeles, waiting for what I thought would be a routine appointment about my surrogacy. Yeah, you heard that right. Surrogacy. I know what you're thinking. And no, it wasn't exactly my dream career path. Sometimes life forces your hand, and when your gambling-addicted father racks up more debt than a small country's GDP, you do what you have to do. The clinic was one of those fancy places in Beverly Hills where everything costs more than my monthly rent. Crystal chandeliers hanging from 20-foot ceilings, Italian marble floors that probably cost more per square foot than my entire apartment, and magazines that looked like they'd been imported from some parallel universe where everyone was beautiful, rich, and had perfect lives. I was nervously flipping through some lifestyle magazine called Elite Living. Seriously, who names these things? Trying not to think about how out of place my Target outfit looked in this temple of wealth, Dot. My hands were shaking slightly as I turned the pages, and not just from nerves. Morning sickness had been hitting me hard for the past 2 weeks, which was weird because I was only supposed to be 8 weeks along, and the pregnancy book said it usually didn't start until around 6 weeks. But then again, nothing about this pregnancy had been normal from the start. The waiting room was filled with the kind of people you'd expect at a high-end fertility clinic, designer handbags that cost more than my car, perfectly manicured nails, and that particular brand of quiet desperation that comes with spending your life savings on the hope of having a baby. I felt like a fraud sitting among them in my secondhand scrubs and worn sneakers. But here's the thing about being broke in Los Angeles. You get really good at pretending you belong in places where you absolutely don't. I've been doing it for 6 years now, ever since I moved here from Ohio with nothing but a broken heart and a determination to disappear from everything that reminded me of Alexander Sterling. Alexander. Even thinking his name made my chest tight. 6 years, and I still couldn't hear it without feeling like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed my heart with a fist. When Dr. Sarah Martinez finally walked in, I could tell immediately that something was wrong. She had that careful, practiced expression that medical professionals wear when they're about to deliver news that's going to completely destroy your world. Her usually warm smile was strained, and she was clutching a thick manila file like it contained nuclear launch codes. "Miss Harrison," she said, closing the door behind her with deliberate care and sitting down across from me. Her voice had that overly gentle tone that doctors use when they're about to tell you that you have 6 months to live, or that they accidentally removed the wrong kidney. "I'm afraid there's been a significant error with your procedure." My stomach, which had already been doing gymnastics thanks to morning sickness, decided to attempt a triple axel. "What kind of error?" Dr. Martinez opened the file with hands that I noticed were trembling slightly. For a woman who performed microsurgery for a living, that was not a good sign. There was a mix-up with the sperm samples during your artificial insemination procedure 3 weeks ago. You didn't receive the sample intended for your surrogacy arrangement. The room started spinning like I was on some nightmare carnival ride. Then whose sample did I get? She pulled out a form and pointed to a name written in bold black letters at the top. My vision blurred for a second, and then the letters came into sharp, horrible focus. Alexander Sterling. The file slipped from my numb fingers and scattered across the floor. That's not possible." "I'm afraid it is," Dr. Martinez said, softly, kneeling to gather the papers. "The sample was donated 3 years ago for medical research purposes. Due to a labeling error, both samples were marked with the initials A.S. Yours was accidentally switched with the intended recipient, Amanda Smith. Alexander Sterling, Alex, the love of my life who I destroyed 6 years ago to save his future. The man who probably hated me more than anyone else on this planet. The man whose baby was now growing inside me. I think I made some kind of sound. Maybe a laugh. Maybe a sob. Maybe just the noise of a human brain short-circuiting. Do you know who Alexander Sterling is? Dr. Martinez looked confused. He's listed as one of our major donors. Sterling Aviation has been funding our fertility research program for the past 2 years. Why? Do you know Mr. Sterling? Know him? I've been planning to marry him. I'd given him my virginity on my 19th birthday in a cheap motel room in Columbus, Ohio, because we couldn't afford anything better, but we were so in love we thought we were the luckiest people in the world. I've fallen asleep in his arms every night for 3 years, dreaming about the life we were going to build together. I destroyed both our hearts in the cruelest way possible because I thought it was the only way to set him free. He's my ex-boyfriend, I whispered. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, working at Sterling Medical Center, a building that Alex now owned as part of his massive aviation empire, carrying his baby without him knowing it existed. If this was a movie, the audience would be throwing popcorn at the screen and yelling about how unrealistic the plot was. Dr. Martinez leaned forward, her professional mask slipping to reveal genuine concern. Miss Harrison, given the circumstances, I think Mr. Sterling has a right to know about this pregnancy. He's quite successful now, and financially speaking, no. The word came out so sharp and final that Dr. Martinez actually flinched. He can never know. Promise me, Dr. Martinez, swear to me on your medical license that he will never know this baby is his. She looked genuinely confused now. But why? From what I understand, he's a billionaire. He could provide for you and the child. You mentioned financial difficulties, and this could solve. You don't understand. I interrupted, my hands instinctively moving to my still flat stomach. Alex hates me. If he found out I was carrying his child, he'd think I orchestrated this whole thing to trap him or get his money. He'd try to take the baby away from me, or worse, he'd think I was trying to ruin his life again. What I didn't tell her was the real reason. The reason that still kept me awake at night 6 years later, replaying every moment of the worst decision I'd ever made in my life. It started on a cold February morning in 2018, when I was 22 and Alex was 26. We'd been together for 3 years, living in a tiny apartment in Columbus while he worked his way through flight school, and I waited tables at a diner that smelled permanently of bacon grease and broken dreams. We were poor, but we were happy. God, we were so happy. Alex had big dreams. He wanted to start his own airline someday, revolutionize the industry, make flying accessible to everyone. He'd stay up late sketching out business plans on napkins, talking about how we'd travel the world together once his company took off. Literally took off. He loved that pun. Someday, Emma, he'd say, pulling me close in our second-hand bed, I'm going to buy you a house with a view of the sky. And every morning, you'll watch my planes fly overhead, and you'll know that everything I built was for you. I believed him. I believed in him. I believed in us. But his mother had other plans. Victoria Sterling was old Boston money, the kind of woman who could trace her family tree back to the Mayflower and still had the receipts. She lived in a penthouse that overlooked Boston Harbor, wore pearls that cost more than most people's houses, and spoke with the kind of accent that let you know she'd been born better than you and would die better than you too. Alex rarely talked about his family. His father had died when he was 15, leaving behind a trust fund that Victoria controlled with an iron fist. She'd made it clear that Alex would only get access to his inheritance if he lived up to the Sterling family standards, which apparently didn't include dating waitresses from small towns in Ohio. The confrontation came on Valentine's Day. Alex had surprised me with a ring, not an engagement ring. We couldn't afford that yet, but a promise ring from a pawn shop that he'd saved. for 3 months to buy. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen, a tiny diamond surrounded by fake emeralds that sparkled like real hope. "It's temporary," he'd said, sliding it onto my finger with hands that shook with nerves and excitement. "But I promise you, Emma Harrison, someday I'm going to replace this with something worthy of you. Someday I'm going to give you everything you deserve." I cried happy tears and told him it was perfect because it was. It represented our future, our dreams, our absolute certainty that love could conquer anything. 3 days later, Victoria Sterling showed up at our apartment. I'd never met her before, but I knew who she was the moment I opened the door. She looked like an older, colder version of Alex, with the same dark hair and blue eyes, but none of the warmth. She was wearing a coat that probably cost more than our rent, and she looked at our apartment like she was visiting a crime scene. "You must be Emma," she said, walking past me without being invited in. "We need to talk." Alex was at work pulling a double shift to pay for my promised ring. It was just me and Victoria Sterling in our tiny living room, with its mismatched furniture and walls so thin you could hear our neighbors arguing about whose turn it was to buy milk. "You seem like a nice girl," Victoria began, settling onto our second-hand couch, like she was afraid it might give her a disease. "But you're ruining my son's life." I'd expected criticism, maybe some classist comments about my background. What I hadn't expected was the manila folder she pulled from her designer purse. "Do you know what this is?" she asked, opening it to reveal official-looking documents. "It's a full scholarship to the International Aviation Academy in Switzerland, the most prestigious flight school in the world. They've offered Alexander a spot in their executive program, with guaranteed placement at Sterling International Airlines." Afterward, my heart sank. Sterling International was one of the biggest airlines in the world, and the Sterling family owned it. This was Alex's dream job, his ticket to everything he'd ever wanted. "That's amazing," I said, confused. "Alex never mentioned, because he turned it down," Victoria said coldly. "He declined the opportunity of a lifetime because he doesn't want to leave you. He's throwing away his future for a waitress from Ohio." The words hit me like physical blows. I never asked him to turn down anything. "I'd support whatever decision. Would you?" Victoria interrupted. "Would you really tell the man you claim to love to move to Switzerland for 2 years? Would you follow him there, leaving behind your sick father and your dead-end job to be a burden on his studies? Or would you guilt him into staying here, working dead-end jobs to support both of you, while his dreams die a slow death in this pathetic apartment?" I opened my mouth to argue, but she wasn't finished. "Alexander is brilliant. He's destined for greatness. But greatness requires sacrifice. And right now, you're the thing he needs to sacrifice. You're holding him back, Emma. And deep down, you know it." She pulled out another folder, this one filled with photographs. Pictures of Alex and me at the diner where I worked, looking tired and stressed. Pictures of him studying at our kitchen table, surrounded by unpaid bills. Pictures of us grocery shopping with coupons, counting change, looking like exactly what we were. 2 kids pretending to be adults and failing at it. "Look at him," Victoria said, pointing to a photo of Alex from the previous week. He looked exhausted, worried, older than his 26 years. "This is what loving you is doing to him. He's working 60-hour weeks to keep you both afloat. When does he study? When does he pursue his dreams? When does he get to be the man he's supposed to become?" The worst part was, she wasn't entirely wrong. Alex had been exhausted lately, picking up extra shifts to help with my father's mounting medical bills. Bob Harrison's gambling addiction had escalated into a serious problem, and the debts were piling up faster than we could handle them. Alex never complained, but I could see the stress wearing on him. "What do you want from me?" I asked quietly. Victoria smiled, and it was the coldest expression I'd ever seen. "I want you to love him enough to let him go." She pulled out a check and set it on our coffee table. More money than I'd ever seen in one place, enough to pay off my father's debts and set me up for life. Take the money and disappear, she said. Tell Alexander you never loved him, that you were using him, whatever it takes to make him hate you enough to move on. Let him go to Switzerland. Let him build the empire he's destined for. And in 20 years, when he's married to someone appropriate. And running Sterling International, you can take comfort in knowing you did the right thing. I stared at the check, my hands trembling. And if I don't? Then you'll watch him slowly destroy himself trying to take care of you. You'll watch his dreams die one bill at a time, one missed opportunity at a time, until he wakes up at 50 and realizes he gave up everything for a woman who wasn't worth it. Is that the future you want for him? The horrible thing was, I could see it. I could picture Alex in 20 years, still in Ohio, still struggling, still pretending to be happy while his dreams withered away. And it would be my fault. I need time to think, I whispered. Victoria stood, leaving the check on the table. You have until tomorrow. Alexander's flight to Switzerland leaves Monday morning. Either he's on it alone, or he stays here and destroys his future for you. After she left, I sat in our empty apartment staring at that check until Alex came home. From work, he was exhausted, his uniform wrinkled, his hair messy from wearing a pilot's cap all day. But when he saw me, his whole face lit up like I was the best thing that had ever happened to him. Hey, beautiful, he said, kissing me softly. How was your day? I almost told him everything right then. Almost showed him his mother's ultimatum and the check and the photos. Almost trusted him to make his own decisions about his future. Instead, I kissed him back and told him it was fine. That night, I lay awake in his arms, listening to him breathe, memorizing the feel of his heartbeat against my cheek. He was dreaming, probably about flying or about us, or about the future we planned together. And I was planning how to destroy it all. The next morning, I called in sick to work and went to the seediest bar I could find. I picked up the first guy who showed interest, some motorcycle mechanic named Dave, who looked nothing like Alex but was willing to help a desperate girl stage a scene for $50. When Alex came home that evening, I was ready. I let him catch me kissing Dave on our couch. Let him see me in the kind of lingerie I'd never worn for anyone but him. I let him think I'd been cheating for months, that everything between us had been a lie. The look on his face when he walked in, God, it still haunts me. Pure devastation, like I'd reached into his chest and ripped his heart out with my bare hands. Which, I guess, is exactly what I did. Emma? His voice was so small, so broken. What's happening? I forced myself to look bored, uninterested. What does it look like? Is this ... are you ... He couldn't even finish the question. Dave, bless him, played his part perfectly. Sorry, man. Didn't know you'd be back so early. Alex ignored him, staring at me like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Emma, what's going on? This isn't you. This isn't us. Isn't it? I stood up, adjusting my robe with shaking hands. God, Alex, you're so naive. Did you really think I loved you? The words tasted like poison, but I forced them out. You're struggling pilot with no money and no prospects. Dave here owns 3 auto shops. Do the math. You're lying. But his voice wavered with uncertainty. Am I? When's the last time we went on a real date? When's the last time you bought me something nice? I'm 22, Alex. I want more than ramen noodles and secondhand furniture. Each word was a knife in my own heart, but I kept going. I've been seeing Dave for 3 months. He takes me to nice restaurants, buys me jewelry, treats me like I deserve to be treated. Alex was crying now, tears streaming down his face as he stared at the woman he loved telling him she'd never loved him back. Emma, please. Whatever this is, we can work through it. I love you. We're supposed to get married, remember? We had plans. I held up my left hand, showing him the promise ring. Then, in the cruelest move of my life, I pulled it off and threw it at his feet. I never wanted your cheat ring or your pathetic plans, I said, my voice steady even though I was dying inside. I want a real man who can give me a real life. And that's not you. Alex bent down and picked up the ring with trembling fingers. For a moment, I thought he was going to fight for me, going to call me on my lies and demand the truth. Instead, he just looked at me with eyes so full of pain I almost broke character right there. I don't believe you, he whispered. The woman I love wouldn't do this. The woman you love never existed, I replied. I'm sorry you wasted 3 years on a fantasy. He left then, walking out of our apartment and out of my life forever. I never saw him again after that night, but I heard through mutual friends that he'd taken the scholarship to Switzerland. Within 6 months, he was working for Sterling International. Within 2 years, he'd started his own company. I'd saved his future by destroying both our hearts. The check from Victoria Sterling stayed on our coffee table for a week. Before I finally tore it up, I didn't want her money. I just wanted Alex to be happy, even if it meant I could never be. Now, 6 years later, I was carrying his child and sitting in a medical facility he owned, trying to explain to a doctor why I couldn't tell the father of my baby that he was going to be a dad. Miss Harrison? Dr. Martinez's voice brought me back to the present. Are you all right? You look very pale. I'm fine, I managed, though I was anything but fine. Just ... this is a lot to process. I understand. But you should know that Mr. Sterling comes to this facility occasionally for board meetings. Sterling Aviation is one of our major investors. There's a chance you might run into him. My stomach dropped even further. When? Actually, there's a severe storm system moving through the area today. All flights are grounded. He might be staying overnight at the medical center if his pilot can't take off. As if summoned by our conversation, the lights flickered overhead as thunder crashed outside. Through the window, I could see the sky had turned an ominous gray-green color, the kind that meant serious weather was coming. The irony was suffocating. After 6 years of successfully avoiding Alexander Sterling in a city of 4 million people, I was about to be trapped in the same building with him while carrying his baby that he didn't know existed. I need to go, I said, standing up quickly, and immediately regretting it as dizziness washed over me. Miss Harrison, please sit down. You're in the early stages of pregnancy, and stress isn't good for I'm fine, I insisted, even though I was anything but fine. Just promise me you won't tell him. Doctor-patient confidentiality, right? Dr. Martinez looked conflicted. Yes. But Emma, think about what's best for your child. Mr. Sterling has resources that could provide. My child will be fine without him, I said firmly. Promise me. She nodded reluctantly. I promise. But please, at least consider. I was already heading for the door. I couldn't hear any more about what was best for my child when what was best for my child was probably the one thing I could never give him, his father. The hallway of Sterling Medical Center was bustling with activity as the storm approached. Emergency protocols were being activated, and I could hear announcements over the intercom about flights being canceled and patients being moved to interior rooms for safety. I made it exactly 3 steps before I heard a voice that made my entire world tilt off its axis. Are all the patients in the East Wing secured? I don't want anyone near those windows when this storm hits. Alexander Sterling, 6 years older, infinitely more successful, and still the most beautiful man I'd ever seen. He was standing near the nurse's station about 20 feet away, wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit that probably cost more than my car. His dark hair was a little longer than he used to wear it, styled in that effortlessly perfect way that only expensive stylists could achieve. He'd filled out in all the right places, his shoulders broader, his presence more commanding, but it was his eyes that stopped me cold. Those same deep blue eyes that used to look at me with so much love, now sharp and commanding as he directed the medical staff. This was Alex, the billionaire CEO, not the struggling pilot I'd fallen in love with. Sir, the East Wing is secure, a nurse was saying. But we're expecting the storm to last several hours. Your pilot called. He can't take off until it passes. Fine, Alex said, his voice carrying that authority that came with commanding a business empire. I'll work from the conference room and make sure all staff members follow emergency protocols. I don't want anyone taking unnecessary risks. Even in crisis mode, he was protecting people. Some things never change. I ducked behind a pillar, my heart hammering so hard I was sure everyone in the building could hear it. What were the odds? Of all the days, in all the medical centers, he had to be here now? The storm, which had been building outside, was getting worse by the minute. Wind rattled the windows, and the lights flickered ominously. I could hear the emergency coordinator's voice over the intercom, calling for all non-essential personnel to report to designated safe areas. I was trying to figure out how to sneak past Alex when fate decided to intervene. The storm finally hit with the force of a freight train. The lights went out completely, plunging the building into darkness as emergency lighting kicked in with an eerie red glow. And in that chaos, as staff members rushed around with flashlights and emergency radios crackled to life, I did the stupidest thing possible. I tripped out, not just a little stumble, mind you. A full-on, arms flailing, pregnancy balance is terrible kind of fall that sent me crashing into a wheelchair someone had left in the hallway. The metal clanged against the floor like a dinner bell, and every person in the immediate area turned to see what had caused the commotion, including Alex. Our eyes met across the dimly lit hallway, and for a moment, time stopped. 6 years of hurt, anger, love, and regret passed between us in a single look. He was older, more polished, radiating power and success. And I was the same small-town girl from Ohio, now pregnant with his baby and crashing into hospital equipment. Emma? His voice was barely a whisper, like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. I scrambled to my feet, mortified beyond belief. Alex, hi. The understatement of the century. Hi. Like we were casual acquaintances running into each other at a coffee shop, not former lovers whose relationship had ended in spectacular, life-altering flames. He recovered faster than I did, his expression shifting from shock to something carefully neutral. But I caught the flash of pain in his eyes, quickly hidden behind the mask of professional politeness he probably perfected over years of business meetings. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "I work here," I said, which was technically true. I was contracted through the medical center for the surrogacy program. "What are you doing here? I own the building." Of course he did. Because the universe apparently had a twisted sense of humor and unlimited time to mess with my life. The emergency lighting cast strange shadows across his face, but I could see him taking in my appearance with the thoroughness of someone who'd once known every inch of my body. The slight curve of my belly that I'd been trying to hide under loose scrubs. The way I'd instinctively place my hand protectively over my stomach when I fell. The exhaustion I couldn't quite hide despite my best efforts. "You're pregnant," he sighed. It wasn't a question. "Yes." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, a tell I remembered from years ago when he was trying to control strong emotions. "Congratulations. I'm sure your husband is thrilled." There was something in his voice, a carefully controlled emotion that I couldn't quite identify. Pain? Anger? Resignation? Maybe all three. "I'm not married," I said quietly. That seemed to surprise him. For just a moment, his professional mask slipped, and I saw something that looked almost like hope flicker in his eyes before he shut it down. Then the father. It's complicated. We stood there in the red-tinged emergency lighting, 6 years of unfinished business hanging between us like a physical weight. Around us, the medical staff continued their storm preparations, but it felt like we were in our own little bubble of awkward tension and unresolved history. The storm raged outside, rattling the windows and causing the emergency lights to flicker ominously. I could hear the wind howling like something alive and angry, and in the distance, the sound of sirens. Emma Harris in the conference room B came an announcement over the intercom. Emma Harrison, the conference room B. I'd never been happier to hear my name called. It gave me an excuse to escape this impossible situation before I did something stupid like tell him the truth. I have to go. Wait. He stepped closer, and I caught a whiff of his cologne. The same one he'd worn years ago, mixed with something new and expensive. Some complicated scent that probably cost more than my monthly salary now. But underneath it all, he still smelled like Alex. Like home. Like safety. Like everything I'd given. Up, we should talk. There's nothing to talk about, Alex. Isn't there? His eyes searched my face with an intensity that made me want to confess everything. 6 years, Emma. Don't you think we have things to discuss? What I think, I said, backing away before I could give in to the temptation to step closer, is that you're successful now. You have a beautiful life, and we should leave the past in the past. What if I don't want to? The question hung in the air between us, loaded with possibility and danger in equal measure. Because what Alex didn't know was that the past wasn't staying in the past at all. It was growing inside me, cell by cell, creating a future that would connect us forever whether he knew it or not. Emma Harrison, conference room B, urgent, the intercom repeated. I really have to go, I said, and this time I didn't wait for his response. I hurried down the hallway, feeling his eyes on me the entire way, burning into my back like laser. Beans. Conference room B turned out to be where they were gathering all the staff who would be staying overnight due to the storm. About 20 of us were crammed into a space meant for 12, going over emergency procedures and room assignments. The air was thick with nervous energy and the smell of too many people in too small a space. Due to the severity of the storm, all flights are grounded indefinitely, the emergency coordinator was saying. She was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who looked like she dealt with every possible crisis and lived to tell about it. Staff members who live more than 30 minutes away will be staying overnight. We've arranged temporary accommodations in the staff quarters. Great. Not only was I trapped in the same building as Alex, but I was apparently spending the night. Here, too, the universe really was having a field day with my life. Miss Harrison, the coordinator continued, consulting her clipboard, since you have aviation experience, you'll be assisting with our emergency response training. Mr. Sterling has volunteered to oversee the program personally. I felt the blood drain from my face so fast I was surprised I didn't pass out on the spot. Mr. Sterling is going to be here? Tonight? Yes. He's actually implemented a new policy requiring all staff to be certified in emergency response. Given tonight's circumstances, it seems like perfect timing for a practical exercise. Perfect timing. Right. If by perfect they meant the worst possible timing in the history of the universe. The coordinator handed me a stack of papers thick enough to choke a horse. These are the training materials. Please review them before tomorrow morning's session. Mr. Sterling takes these certifications very seriously. I took the papers with hands that were definitely not shaking and absolutely did not notice that they were all stamped with the Sterling Aviation logo. A logo that featured a pair of wings surrounding the letters Elsa, Lucky, and Sterling. The initials Alex had always said he'd make famous someday, back when we were young and stupid and thought love could conquer anything. He'd done it. He'd made those initials famous. Sterling Aviation was known worldwide now, but I bet everything I owned that most people didn't know what the LS stood for. Lucky Salvador, my maiden name, the one I used back when we were together. He built an empire and named it after me, after us, after what we used to be. The realization hit me like a physical blow. All these years, I thought he hated me. But you don't name your life's work after someone you hate. You name it after someone you love so much that even after they destroy you, you can't let them go. Ben hon ton hun tishin li vin tip tic sai sop v. SBT. Tisin BP sung them kun 500 TG Jake hun UC 6,000 plus T. K-Law from BP sung. I spent the rest of the evening holed up in the staff quarters. A converted conference room with cots lined up like we were at some bizarre summer camp for medical professionals. The storm raged outside, rattling the windows and causing the lights to flicker intermittently. Every time the building shook, I felt the baby flutter inside me. As if he could sense my anxiety, the training materials were spread across my cot, like evidence in a crime scene. Page after page of emergency procedures, all stamped with that Sterling Aviation logo that made my heart ache every time I looked at it. But it wasn't just the logo that was getting to me. It was the details hidden in the fine print. Sterling Aviation owned 47 planes, and every single one had a name instead of just a number. Emma's Hope, Harrison's Dream, Lucky Star, Small Town Spirit, Ohio's Pride. Names that told the story of a man who'd never really moved on, who carried his first love with him as he built an empire. There was even a plane called Broken Promise, which made me laugh through my tears because of course Alex would name a plane after our relationship. You'd always had a twisted sense of humor about our situation. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend Jess. How's the surrogacy thing going? All good? Haven't heard from you all day, and I'm starting to worry. I stared at the message for a long time before typing back, complicated. We'll call you tomorrow. Stuck at work overnight because of the storm. What could I possibly tell her? That I was accidentally pregnant with my billionaire ex-boyfriend's baby? That the same ex-boyfriend who become one of the most successful men in America was now trapped in the same building as me during a storm that felt like something out of a disaster movie? That I was pretty sure the universe was actively trying to destroy what was left of my sanity? Another text, this one from an unknown number. We need to talk. Alex, my stomach flipped like an Olympic gymnast. He'd gotten my number somehow, which shouldn't have surprised me. When you own a building and probably have access to all employee records, getting someone's contact information is child's play. I deleted the message without responding. 10 minutes. Later, another one. I know you're getting these. Don't make me come find you. That sounded exactly like the Alex I remembered. Direct, stubborn, and absolutely not willing to take no for an answer. Money and success might have changed a lot of things about him, but apparently his complete inability to let things go wasn't one of them. I was debating whether to respond when there was a soft knock on the door. My heart stopped completely. Convinced that Alex had made good on his threat to come find me. But when I opened it, it wasn't Alex standing there. It was Dr. Martinez, holding 2 cups of something steaming and looking like she hadn't slept in about 48 hours. I thought you might be having trouble sleeping, she said, offering me one of the cups. Herbal tea, not coffee. Better for the pregnancy. Chamomile and ginger should help with the nausea too. Thanks, I said, accepting the warm cup gratefully. The tea smelled like my grandmother's garden back in Ohio, all earthy and comforting. Dr. Martinez, you didn't tell him, did you, about the baby? She shook her head firmly. Doctor-patient confidentiality is sacred to me, Emma. But I have to ask, he's going to figure it out eventually, isn't he? The timing, the fact that you're here, the way you two looked at each other in the hallway. We didn't look at each other any particular way. Dr. Martinez gave me a look that clearly said she wasn't buying it for a second. I've been doing this for 20 years, honey. I've seen every possible combination of human emotions, and what I saw tonight was 6 years of unresolved feelings. Hitting like a freight train. That man still loves you. That's impossible, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. You didn't see what I did to him, the way I destroyed us. He hates me, and he has every right to. Does he? She asked gently, settling into the chair across from my cot. Or maybe he's just been waiting for a chance to understand why. Before I could answer, the lights went out again. This time, they didn't come back on for almost a full minute, leaving us in complete darkness, except for the glow from our phones. When the emergency lighting finally kicked in, casting that eerie red glow throughout the building. We heard the emergency coordinator's voice over the intercom, all staff to emergency stations. We have a situation in the East Wing. This is not a drill. My blood went cold. The East Wing was where they kept the most critical patients, including the cardiac care unit and the neonatal intensive care unit. If something had happened there, during the storm, Dr. Martinez was already moving, her professional instincts kicking in. Emma, you're with me. We need all available staff. We rushed through the corridors, our footsteps echoing in the empty hallways. The emergency lighting made everything look like a scene from a horror movie, casting long shadows that seemed to move on their own. Other staff members were converging on the East Wing from all directions, and I could hear shouting from up ahead. That's when I saw him. Alex was in the cardiac care unit, his expensive suit jacket discarded on a chair, sleeves rolled up to his elbows, performing CPR on an elderly patient while directing the medical staff like he'd been doing it his entire life. His hair was messed up from the humidity and stress, but his hands moved with steady, practiced precision. 30 compressions, then 2 breaths, he was saying calmly, his voice cutting through the chaos. Has anyone called for backup power to this unit? Sir, you really don't need to, a nurse started. I'm CPR certified, Alex said without breaking rhythm, sweat beading on his forehead from the effort. Keep trying to get the backup generator online. This man needs consistent compressions until the defibrillator is operational. A doctor rushed in with a manual defibrillator. We've got portable power. Sir, you can step back now. Alex continued compressions until the very last second, only moving aside when the doctor was ready to take over. His shirt was soaked with sweat, and there was a look of fierce determination on his face that I remember from our college days when he was studying for his pilot's license. Clear. The doctor called. The shock made the patient's body jerk, and for a moment, everything was silent except for the sound of the storm outside. Then the heart monitor beeped steadily, showing a normal rhythm. We've got him back, the doctor announced, and a cheer went up from the assembled staff. Alex stepped back, running a hand through his disheveled hair. That's when he saw me standing in the doorway, and our eyes met across the crowded room. I stood frozen, watching this man I'd once known better than myself save someone's life with the same methodical precision he'd once used to plan our future. Together. Success hadn't just given him money and power, it had given him confidence, authority, and apparently advanced medical training. He was magnificent. And in that moment, watching him care for a complete stranger with such dedication and skill, I realized something that terrified me to my core. I was still completely, hopelessly, devastatingly in love with Alexander Sterling, the man I destroyed. 6 years ago, to save his future, had become everything I dreamed he could be. And now I was carrying his child, and he had no idea that his past was about to become his future, whether he wanted it or not. The next morning came with the kind of exhaustion that seeps into your bones and makes everything feel like you're moving. Underwater. I'd spent the night tossing and turning on that uncomfortable cot, my mind racing between thoughts of Alex, saving that man's life and the baby growing inside me that shared his DNA. The storm had finally passed, leaving behind crystal, clear skies, and the kind of crisp morning air that made Los Angeles feel almost magical. But inside Sterling Medical Center, tension hung thick as fog. Everyone was tired, stressed, and ready to go home. Everyone except me, because I knew that going home meant facing the impossible reality of my situation. I was in the staff kitchen, trying to choke down some crackers and ginger tea when Mike Davison found me. He looked like he'd been up all night too, his security uniform wrinkled and his usually perfect hair sticking up at odd angles. "Morning, Emma," he said, pouring himself a cup of coffee that looked strong enough to wake the dead. "Hell of a night, huh?" "You could say that," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. There was something about Mike that still bothered me, though. I couldn't put my finger on what exactly. Maybe it was the way he always seemed to show up at just the right moment. Or maybe it was how he looked at me like he was trying to solve a puzzle. I heard about what happened in the cardiac unit. He continued, settling into the chair across from me. Sterling really stepped up. Guy knows his way around an emergency situation. Alex always was good in a crisis, I said without thinking, then immediately regretted revealing that I knew him well enough to comment on his character. Mike raised an eyebrow. Alex? You two know each other? I felt heat rise in my cheeks. We ... Have history. What kind of history? There was something sharp in Mike's voice now, an edge that hadn't been there before. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with another text from Alex. Emergency training starts in 1 hour. Conference room A, don't even think about calling. In sick. Mike leaned over just enough to see the message on my screen, and his expression darkened. He's texting you now? It's just work stuff, I said quickly, putting my phone face down on the table. He's implementing new emergency protocols. Right, Mike said, but his tone suggested he didn't believe me for a second. Emma, can I ask you something? And I want you to be honest with me. I nodded, though every instinct I had was screaming that this conversation was about to go somewhere I didn't want it to go. The baby you're carrying, Mike said slowly. His. Eyes never leaving my face. Is it his? The crackers I've been eating turned to sawdust in my mouth. I don't know what you're talking about. Come on, Emma, I'm not stupid. Guy shows up during the storm. You're clearly upset about seeing him. You're pregnant, and now he's texting you personally. Plus, I did a little research last night. My blood went cold. What kind of research? Mike pulled out his phone and showed me a photo that made my heart stop. It was Alex and me from 6 years ago, taken at some air show in Ohio. We were laughing about something, his arm around my waist, both of us looking ridiculously young and happy. I remembered that day. Alex had just gotten his commercial pilot's license, and we'd spent the afternoon dreaming about the airlines he was going to start someday. Where did you get this? I whispered. Social media is forever, Emma. Even when you think you've deleted everything, there are always traces. Your old Facebook account had quite a few photos of you and Alexander Sterling from 2016 to 2018. Then suddenly, nothing. Like you both just disappeared from each other's lives. I felt like I was drowning. Mike, you don't understand. I understand plenty, he said, his voice getting harder. I understand that you've been lying to me since the day we met. I understand that you're pregnant with a billionaire's baby and pretending it's some random surrogacy arrangement. What I don't understand is why. Because it's none of your business, I snapped, surprising myself with my vehemence. My personal life has nothing to do with you, Mike. We barely know each other. His laugh was bitter. Barely know each other? Emma, I've been watching over you for 2 years, making sure you're safe, making sure the right opportunities come your way. I even helped arrange for you to get the job here. My stomach dropped. What do you mean, you helped arrange? You think it was a coincidence that Sterling Medical Center had an opening for someone with your exact qualifications right when you needed a job? You think it was luck that your application got fast-tracked through HR? The room started spinning? You've been manipulating my life? I've been protecting you, Mike said fiercely. From the moment I saw you in that coffee shop 2 years ago, looking lost and scared and trying to figure out how to pay your father's debts, I knew you needed help, and I was in a position to provide it. You're insane, I breathed, standing up so quickly that my chair fell backward. You've been stalking me for 2 years? Not stalking. Caring. There's a difference. Mike stood too, and suddenly the kitchen felt very small and very isolated. I love you, Emma. I've loved you since high school, even though you never noticed me. When I found you in Los Angeles, it felt like fate was giving me a second chance. Mike, you need help. This isn't normal behavior. His face hardened, and what Sterling did to you 6 years ago was normal. I know what happened, Emma. I know he broke your heart and left you with nothing. I know you had to move across the country to get away from the memories. Why would you want to go back to someone who hurt you like that? You don't know anything about what happened between Alex and me, I said, backing toward the door. And you sure as hell don't get to decide what's best for my life. Even if what's best for your life includes raising his child alone while he marries someone else? The words hit me like a slap. How do you know about Isabella? Mike's smile was cold. I told you, I did research. Sterling's engagement to Isabella Cross has been all over the society pages for months. Big wedding planned for Christmas, from what I hear. Where exactly do you and his baby fit into that picture? I didn't have an answer for that, because Mike was right. Alex was marrying Isabella, building a life with her, and I was just a complication. From his past carrying a child he'd never wanted to have. It doesn't matter, I said finally. Alex doesn't know about the baby, and he never will. Why? Because you're protecting him. Because you think he's better off without you. Mike stepped closer, and I could see something dangerous flickering in his eyes. Or because you know that if he found out, he'd try to take the baby away from you? Before I could answer, the kitchen door swung open and Alex walked in. He took one look at the scene, me backed against the wall looking terrified. Mike standing too close with an expression that could charitably be called unhinged, and his entire demeanor shifted into protective mode. Is there a problem here? Alex asked, his voice deceptively calm as he positioned himself between Mike and me. No problem at all, Mike replied smoothly, but I could see his hands clenching into fists. Emma and I were just discussing old times. Funny, Alex said, his eyes never leaving Mike's face. She looks upset. Maybe because her past just walked back into her life uninvited. Mike shot back. Some people know when they're not wanted. Sterling. The temperature in the room seemed to drop about 20 degrees. Alex stepped closer to Mike, and suddenly the kitchen felt like a boxing ring before the first punch is thrown. Emma, Alex said without turning around, go to conference. Room A. I'll be there in a few minutes to start the training session. Alex, don't, I started. Go, he said firmly. Now. I looked between the two men, both radiating tension and barely controlled aggression, and made the smart choice. I left, but I didn't go to conference room A instead. I hid around the corner, close enough to hear what happened next, but far enough away to run if things got violent. Let me make something very clear, I heard Alex say, his voice low and deadly serious. Emma is under my protection while she's in this building. If you have a problem with her, you come to me. If you make her uncomfortable, you answer to me. And if you ever corner her in an isolated room again, you'll find out exactly how much influence a billionaire can wield when someone threatens something he cares about. Something you care about? Mike laughed harshly. That's Rich coming from the guy who destroyed her 6 years ago. You think I don't know what you did? How you left her broken and alone? There was a long pause before Alex spoke again. I think you know a lot less than you imagine. And I think you need to remember that you're an employee in my building. And Emma is my responsibility. Touch her again, and you're fired. Threaten her again, and I'll make sure you never work security anywhere in this city. Are we clear? Crystal, Mike replied. But there was something in his voice that suggested this conversation was far from over. I heard footsteps approaching and quickly ducked into the nearest bathroom, my heart racing. Through the crack in the door, I saw Mike storm past, his face twisted with rage and something that looked like hurt pride. A few minutes later, Alex appeared in the hallway, looking around like he was searching for something or someone. Emma? He called softly. I know. You're here somewhere. We need to talk. I stayed hidden in the bathroom, trying to calm my racing heart. The conversation I just overheard had revealed so much more than either man probably intended. Mike's obsession with me was deeper and more dangerous than I'd realized. And Alex ... Alex had called me something he cared about. Emma, please. Alex continued, his voice closer to the bathroom door now. I know this is complicated, but hiding isn't going to solve anything. We're adults. We can have a civilized conversation. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. Alex was standing right there, close enough that I could see the worry lines around his eyes and smell that familiar cologne that still made my knees weak. "Are you okay?" he asked immediately, his eyes scanning my face for signs of distress. "Did he hurt you?" "I'm fine," I said, though we both knew that was a lie. "Alex, you shouldn't have threatened him. Mike's just—" Confused? Alex's eyebrows shot up. "Emma, that guy has been watching you like a hawk since I got here. He knows details about your life that no casual acquaintance should know." "That's not confusion. That's obsession." He was right, but admitting it meant acknowledging that my life was even more complicated than I thought. "It doesn't matter. I can handle Mike. Can you?" Alex stepped closer, and I found myself backed against the bathroom door frame with nowhere to go. Because from where I was standing, it looked like you were about to bolt from that kitchen. And I remember what you look like when you're scared, Emma. You had the same expression 6 years ago, right before you... He trailed off, but we both knew how that sentence ended. "Right before I destroyed us." "Alex, we can't do this," I said desperately. "You're getting married. You have a whole life planned out with Isabella. I can't be the person who screws that up for you again." "Again?" His eyes searched my face with an intensity that made me want to confess everything. "What do you mean, again?" "Nothing. I just meant ... We can't go backward. Too much has happened." "Has it?" Alex reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, a gesture so familiar and intimate that it made my eyes fill with tears. "Because standing here with you, it feels like no time has passed at all." "That's not fair," I whispered. "Fair?" Alex laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Emma, you disappeared from my life without explanation. One day we were planning our future together, and the next day you were telling me you've been cheating on me for months. 6 years I've wondered what I did wrong, what I could have done differently. And now you're here, pregnant with someone else's baby, and you're talking to me about fair?" The irony was suffocating. If he only knew that the baby was his, that I'd sacrificed our love to give him the freedom to become the man he was today, that everything I'd done had been to protect his future. "Alex, you don't understand." "Then help me understand," he said. Urgently, "tell me what really happened 6 years ago. Tell me why you looked like you were dying inside even as you were telling me you didn't love me. Tell me why you kept my promise ring for 3 months after I left. Yeah, our mutual friends told me about that. Tell me why you've been using your middle name and your mother's maiden name for the past 6 years instead of Harrison." My blood went cold. "How do you know about that?" "I'm a billionaire, Emma. When I want information, I get it." "The question is why you've been hiding." Before I could answer, my phone rang. The caller ID showed my roommate Jessica's number, and something about the way it was ringing, urgent, insistent, made me answer despite the terrible timing. "Jess, I can't talk right now." "Emma, thank God." Jessica's voice was panicked, breathless. "You need to get home right now. Something's happened to your dad." My knees buckled, and Alex caught my arm to steady me. "What do you mean something's happened?" "He's in the hospital. Riverside General in Ohio. Emma, it's bad. The doctors are saying..." "They're saying he might not make it." The phone slipped from my numb fingers and clattered to the floor. Alex caught it before it could break, automatically putting it on speaker. "This is Alexander Sterling," he said into the phone, his voice taking on that commanding tone I remember from Crisis. "Situations. Who am I speaking with?" Jessica Martinez." "I'm Emma's roommate. Who are you?" "A friend," Alex said, looking at me with concern. "What's the situation with Emma's father?" "He had a massive heart attack this morning. The gambling debts. The stress. It finally caught up with him. Emma, the doctors need to know his medical history, and they need family consent for some procedures. You have to get to Ohio as soon as possible." I stood there frozen, unable to process what I was hearing. My dad was dying. My alcoholic, gambling addicted. Father who had caused me so much pain and worry was lying in a hospital bed, and I wasn't there. "I have to go," I whispered, but my voice sounded like it was coming from very far away. "You're in no condition to travel alone," Alex said firmly. "You're pregnant, you're in shock, and you just spent the night in an emergency shelter. I'm flying you to Ohio." "Alex, no. I can't let you. It's not a request, Emma. My pilot is already prepping the jet. We can be in Ohio in 4 hours." "But Isabella ... your work ... your life. We'll all be here when I get back," he said simply. "Right now, you need help, and I'm the one person in this building with the resources to provide it." Jessica's voice came through the phone speaker. "Emma? What's going on? Who is this guy?" Alex looked at me expectantly, waiting for me to explain who he was and what he meant to me. But how could I explain that he was the love of my life, the father of my unborn child, and the man I destroyed to save his future all at the same time? I started, then stopped. What was Alex to me now? Everything and nothing. My past and my future. The answer to all my problems and the cause of all my pain. "He's Alexander Sterling," I said finally, "the owner of Sterling Aviation, and he's my baby's father." The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Alex went very still, his face cycling through shock, confusion, and something that might have been hope before settling on careful blankness. "Emma," he said quietly, "what did you just say?" But I was already walking away, heading for the exit, because I couldn't deal with the conversation that was about to happen. My father was dying. I was pregnant with Alex's baby. Mike was apparently a stalker, and I just confessed the biggest secret of my life to my roommate over speakerphone. "Emma, wait!" Alex called after me, his footsteps echoing in the hallway as he followed. "We need to talk about this." "No," I called back without turning around. "We need to get to Ohio. Everything else can wait." But as I hurried toward the exit, I knew that everything else couldn't wait much longer. The truth was out now, or at least part of it. And Alex Sterling was not the kind of man who let important questions go unanswered. The ride to the airport was tense and silent. Alex had arranged for a car to pick us up, not just any car, but a black Mercedes that probably cost more than I made in 2 years. The driver was professional and discreet, but I could feel him glancing at us in the rearview mirror, probably wondering why his billionaire boss was traveling with a pregnant woman in scrubs, who looked like she'd been hit by a truck. Alex sat beside me, making phone calls to arrange my father's medical care, calling in favors with doctors I'd never heard of, using his influence to ensure my dad would get the best possible treatment. I should have been grateful. Instead, I felt like I was drowning in debt I could never repay. "I've arranged for Dr. Patricia Reynolds to consult on your father's case," Alex said, ending another call. "She's one of the best cardiac surgeons in the Midwest. She'll be in Ohio by the time we land." "Alex, I can't afford. It's handled," he said firmly. "Don't worry about money right now." "Don't worry about money?" I laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. "Alex, you don't understand. My dad owes money to dangerous people. The kind of people who don't care about medical bills or family emergencies. If he dies..." "He's not going to die," Alex said with the kind of certainty that only comes from having enough money to make problems disappear. "And you're not going to deal with whatever financial issues he has alone." I turned to look at him, this man who had once been my entire world and was now essentially a stranger with unlimited resources and a guilty conscience. "Why are you doing this?" "Because 30 minutes ago you told your roommate that I'm your baby's father," he replied calmly. "And until I understand what that means, you're under my protection." The way he said it, like I was some kind of business. Investment he needed to safeguard, hurt more than I'd expected. "Alex, it's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is." I stared out the window at the Los Angeles skyline rushing past, trying to figure out how to explain the unexplainable. It was an accident, a medical mistake at the fertility clinic. Your sperm donation got mixed up with someone else's, and I received it during my surrogacy procedure. Alex was quiet for so long that I finally turned to look at him. His face had gone completely pale, and he was staring at me like I just told him the sky was actually green. "That's impossible," he said finally. "I thought so too. But Dr. Martinez showed me the paperwork. Your sample was supposed to be used for research only, but there was a labeling error. Both samples had the initials of S. I donated sperm for research 3 years ago," Alex said slowly, like he was working through a complex equation. "It was supposed to help with fertility treatments for military families. I never consented to it being used for artificial insemination. I know. And I never consented to carrying your baby. But here we are." Alex ran a hand through his hair. A gesture I remember from when he was stressed or overwhelmed. "Jesus, Emma, how long have you known?" "Since yesterday morning. And you weren't going to tell me?" I met his eyes directly. "No. Why the hell not?" "Because you're getting married, Alex. Because you have a perfect life with a perfect woman. And I'm just a reminder of a past you'd probably rather forget. Because you didn't choose this, and neither did I, and bringing you into it would only complicate everything." "Complicate everything?" Alex's voice rose, and the driver glanced nervously in the rearview mirror. "Emma, we're talking about my child. My son or daughter. How is that a complication?" "Because you don't love me anymore," I said quietly. "And I don't want to trap you in a situation you don't want just because of a medical mistake." Alex stared at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "Is that really what you think? That I don't love you anymore?" The question hung between us like a bridge I was afraid to cross. Because if Alex still loved me, if there was even a chance that we could work through our past and build something together, then everything I'd sacrificed 6 years ago had been for nothing. "It doesn't matter what I think," I said finally. "You're marrying Isabella." "Am I?" The 2 words were spoken so quietly I almost missed them. But the implications hit me like a freight train. "Alex, you can't break up with her because of this." That's exactly what I was trying to avoid. "You were trying to avoid me taking responsibility for my own child. I was trying to avoid ruining your life again," I snapped, all my carefully controlled emotions finally spilling over. 6 years ago, I made the hardest decision of my life to set you free. I'm not going to be the person who destroys your happiness twice. Set me free?" Alex's voice was dangerously quiet. "Is that what you call what happened 6 years ago?" "Yes." "Then, you're going to explain that to me, right now. Because, Emma, what you did 6 years ago didn't set me free. It nearly destroyed me." I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of 6 years of secrets pressing down on my chest. "Alex, please. My father is dying. Can we do this later?" "No," he said firmly. "Because I have a feeling that once we deal with your father's situation, you're going to disappear again. And I'm not letting you take my child and vanish from my life twice." The airplane hangar was bigger than my entire apartment building, all gleaming metal and expensive machinery. Alex's private jet sat in the center like a sleeping giant, its sleek white surface marked with the Sterling Aviation logo I'd memorized from all those trading materials. "Sir," a man in a pilot's uniform approached us as we walked across the tarmac. "We're fueled and ready for departure. Flight time to Columbus is approximately 4 hours." "Thank you, Captain Rodriguez," Alex replied. "Any weather concerns?" "Clear skies all the way, sir. Should be a smooth flight." As we climbed the stairs to the jet, I couldn't help but remember the first time Alex had ever taken me flying. You were still a student pilot then, and we'd rented a tiny Cessna for $50 an hour. I'd been terrified, but Alex had been. So excited to share his passion with me that I'd forced myself to enjoy it. Now he owned a fleet of jets, and I was climbing aboard one as a passenger carrying his child to see my dying father. Life had a twisted sense of humor. The interior of the jet was like something out of a magazine. Cream-colored leather seats, polished wood surfaces, and windows bigger than most people's televisions. There was a full kitchen, a conference area, and what looked like a bedroom in the back. "Make yourself comfortable," Alex said, gesturing toward the plush seating area. "The flight attendant will get you anything you need." I settled into a seat that probably cost more than my car, trying not to think about how out of place I looked. In my rumpled scrubs, Alex sat across from me, pulling out his phone to make more arrangements for my father's care dot as the plane taxied toward the runway. I felt the baby flutter inside me, as if he could sense that we were about to embark on a journey that would change everything. In a few hours, I'd be back in Ohio, the place I'd run away from 6 years ago. I'd be facing my father's mortality, my own uncertain future, and the consequences of secrets I kept for far too long. But first, I owed Alex the truth about why I destroyed us 6 years ago, and I wasn't sure either of us was ready for that conversation. "Emma," Alex said, putting his phone away as the jet reached cruising altitude, "tell me about your mother." The question caught me off guard. "What? Your mother? You never talked about her much when we were together. You said she died when you were young, but you never told me how." I felt my throat tighten. "Why are you asking about that now?" "Because I'm trying to understand you. I'm trying to figure out what makes you so willing to sacrifice your own happiness for other people." The insight was so accurate it made my chest ache. My mother died in a car accident when I was 12. She was coming home from her second job, working late to help pay for my dad's addiction treatment. He'd been sober for 6 months, but the bills from his rehabilitation program were overwhelming. Alex's expression softened. "Emma, I'm sorry. I didn't know." She fell asleep at the wheel. The police said she'd been working 18-hour days for weeks. She died because she was trying to save my father from himself, and I swore I'd never make the same mistake. "But you did make the same mistake," Alex said gently. "You sacrificed yourself to save me. It was different, was it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you have a pattern of destroying your own life to protect the people you love." I turned to stare out the window at the clouds below, feeling exposed and vulnerable. "My mother died for nothing, Alex. My father went back to gambling within 6 months of her funeral. All her sacrifice, all her pain, and nothing changed. So you decided that if you sacrificed our relationship, at least my success would make." "It were a while? Yes. Did it ever occur to you to let me make that choice for myself?" I looked back at him, this successful, powerful man who had built an empire from nothing. "Look at what you've accomplished, Alex. Look at what you've become. Sterling Aviation employs thousands of people. You're revolutionizing the industry. You're making a difference in the world. Would you have done any of that if you'd stayed in Ohio with me?" "I don't know," he said honestly. "But I would have been happy." "You say that now, but what about in 10 years? What about when the bills kept piling up and the opportunities kept passing you by? What about when you realize you could have had everything if you'd just been brave enough to leave me behind?" "Emma, that's not who I am. Isn't it?" I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo I'd saved from a business magazine article about him. "Look at this picture, Alex. Look at yourself. You're confident, successful, powerful. You're everything you dreamed of becoming. Do you really think you'd be the same man if you'd stayed with a waitress from Ohio?" Alex studied the photo, then looked back at me. "Do you want to know what I see when I look at this picture?" I nodded, not trusting. My voice. "I see a man who built an empire to try to fill the hole that was left when the woman he loved convinced him she'd never loved him back. I see someone who threw himself into work because it was the only thing that didn't remind him of what he'd done. Loss." The words hit me like physical blows. "Alex, don't. Every plane in my fleet is named after something that reminds me of you, Emma. Every business decision I make, I wonder what you think about it. 6 years, and I still catch myself looking for you in crowded airports. You're getting married," I whispered, "to a woman I respect but don't love. To someone my mother approves of, someone who fits into my world perfectly, someone who's everything you're not. The pain in his voice was unmistakable, and it matched the ache in my chest perfectly. Alex, Isabella is perfect for you. Maybe, but she's not you. Before I could respond, the captain's voice came over the intercom. We're beginning our descent into Columbus, Ohio. Please return to your seats and prepare for landing. Through the window, I could see the familiar landscape of central Ohio, spreading out below us. The place where Alex and I have fallen in love, where we planned our future, where I destroyed everything to set him free. Emma, Alex said, as the plane descended toward the runway, when we get through this situation with your father, we're going to talk, really talk, about what happened 6 years ago, about the baby, about what we want for the future. And Isabella? Will have to wait. Right now, you and our child are my priority. As the jet touched down in Ohio, I felt like I was stepping back into a life I tried to leave behind. But this time, I wasn't alone. Alex was beside me, and growing inside me was a child that connected us forever, whether we wanted to be connected or not. The truth was finally out, or at least part of it. Now we had to figure out what to do with it. The Ohio air hit me like a punch to the chest, thick with humidity and memories I'd spent 6 years trying to forget. Columbus looked exactly the same, industrial buildings mixed with attempts at urban renewal, the kind of city that was trying to reinvent itself but couldn't quite shake its blue-collar roots. Just like me, I suppose, Alex's private jet had landed at John Glenn International Airport, and now we were in the back of a black SUV that probably cost more than most people's houses, racing toward Ohio State University Medical Center. My father was somewhere in that sprawling complex, fighting for his life while I sat in luxury leather seats, feeling like the worst daughter in the world. The cardiac team is expecting us, Alex said, ending another phone call. He'd been making calls since we landed, to doctors, to hospital administrators, to people who could apparently make things happen with just his name. Dr. Patricia Williams is one of the best cardiac surgeons in the country. She's flying in from Cleveland to handle the surgery personally. You don't have to do all this, I said for the 10th time, watching familiar neighborhoods blur past the window. My insurance will cover. Your father's medical bills are not your concern right now. Alex interrupted, his voice carrying that CEO authority that brooked no argument. The only thing you need to worry about is being there for him. I turned to look at him, this man who 6 years ago had eaten ramen noodles for dinner 3 nights a week, and now was casually arranging for the best cardiac surgeon in Ohio to operate on my gambling-addicted father without even blinking. The transformation was staggering, but underneath all that success and polish, I could still see glimpses of the Alex I'd fallen in love with. The way he rubbed his temple when he was stressed. The way he loosened his tie when he was trying to. Think? The way he kept glancing at me when he thought I wasn't looking. Why are you doing this? I asked quietly. He was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the Columbus skyline. Because 6 years ago, when your father's gambling debts were drowning both of you, I wasn't in a position to help. Now I am. The SUV pulled up to the medical center, and Alex was out of the vehicle before it came to a complete stop, coming around to help me out like some kind of gentleman from another era. His hand was warm and steady as he guided me toward the entrance, and I tried not to think about how right it felt to have him beside me again. The cardiac intensive care unit smelled like antiseptic and fear. My father looked so small in that hospital bed, hooked up to more machines than I'd ever seen in one place. His face was gray, his breathing shallow, and for the first time in my adult life, Bob Harrison looked every one of his 62 years. Emma, honey? His voice was barely a whisper, but his eyes lit up when he saw me. Then they shifted to Alex, and I watched my father's face go through a series of emotions, surprise, shame, and something that looked almost like relief. "Hello, Mr. Harrison," Alex said, stepping forward with that natural confidence that had always made people trust him. "I'm glad we made it in time." Alex Sterling, my father said, managing a weak smile. I always wondered if I'd see you again. There was something in his tone, something that made my stomach clench with dread. These two men had history that I didn't know about, conversations that had happened without me. Dad, you need to rest, I said, taking his hand. It felt fragile as bird bones. The surgery is in a few hours, and you need to save your strength. Emma, there's something I need to tell you first, Dad said, his grip on my hand surprisingly strong. Something I should have told you 6 years ago. My blood went cold. Dad, whatever it is, it can wait until after. No, it can't. He looked at Alex, and some kind of understanding passed between them. She doesn't know, does she, about what really happened? Alex's jaw tightened. Mr. Harrison, maybe this isn't the time. When is the time? Dad asked, his voice gaining strength. I'm 62 years old. I just had a heart attack, and my daughter is pregnant with your baby. If not now, when? The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Alex's head snapped toward me, his eyes wide with shock, and something that looked almost like hope. How did you? I started. Because I've been getting reports about you for 6 years, Dad said simply. From Mike Davidson. He's been keeping me informed about your life in California, ostensibly to make sure you were safe. But lately, his reports have been concerning. The room started spinning. Mike has been reporting to you? Not just to me, Dad said, his eyes shifting to Alex. To his mother, too, Victoria Sterling. Of course. The woman who'd orchestrated our breakup 6 years ago had apparently never stopped orchestrating our lives. Alex was very still beside me, but I could feel the tension radiating from him like heat from a furnace. What exactly has Mike Davidson been telling you? That Emma was pregnant, that she was struggling financially, that she might need intervention. Dad's voice was getting weaker, but his words were crystal clear. Victoria Sterling paid me to take that ring 6 years ago. Alex, she paid me to break you two up, and she's been paying me to keep Emma away from you ever since. The confession hit me like a physical blow. Not only had Victoria manipulated our breakup, but my own father had been part of it. And Mike, sweet, helpful Mike, who'd been so conveniently present whenever I needed help, had been spying on me. For years. Dad, how could you? I whispered, but even as I said it, I understood. Gambling addiction was a disease, and Victoria Sterling had weaponized it against his own daughter. I'm sorry, baby girl, Dad said, tears streaming down his face. I was desperate, and she offered me enough money to pay off all my debts. She said it was for the best, that Alex deserved better than our family's problems. And when you two broke up, when I saw how destroyed you both were, I knew I'd made a mistake. But by then it was too late. Alex's voice was deadly quiet. How much money are we talking about? $200,000 6 years ago. Another $50,000 a year since then to keep quiet and keep Emma in California. Dad looked ashamed and exhausted. She said if Emma ever tried to contact you, if you ever found out about the baby, there would be consequences. What kind of consequences? I asked, though I was afraid of the answer. She has documentation of my gambling debts, my financial crimes, tax evasion, enough to put me in federal prison for the rest of my life. And she made it clear that if anything happened to disrupt Alex's upcoming marriage, she'd make sure both you and I paid for it. The pieces were falling into place now, creating a picture so ugly and twisted that I could barely comprehend it. Victoria Sterling hadn't just broken us up 6 years ago. She'd been controlling our lives ever since, using my father's addiction and criminal behavior as leverage to keep us apart. Alex's phone rang, interrupting the horrible revelations. He glanced at the screen and his face went pale. It's Mike Davidson. Don't answer it, I said quickly, but Alex was already swiping to accept the call. Davidson, Alex said, his voice carefully controlled. What do you want? Even from 3 feet away, I could hear Mike's voice through the phone, agitated and angry. She told you, didn't she, about the baby? Where are you, Mike? That's not important. What's important is that you understand something, Sterling. Emma belongs with me. We've been building a life together for 2 years, and I'm not going to let you waltz back in and destroy that just because you knocked her up. Alex's free hand clenched into a fist. Emma doesn't belong to anyone, and you're delusional if you think, am I? I know things about you, Sterling. About your company, about your precious reputation. Did you know that your fiancée, Isabella, has been embezzling money from your charitable foundation? Did you know she's been selling inside information about Sterling Aviation to your competitors? My blood went cold. Isabella Cross, Alex's perfect society fiancée, wasn't just a threat to our relationship. She was apparently a criminal. You're lying, Alex said, but there was uncertainty in his voice. Check your accounts, Mike said, and now I could hear the dangerous edge creeping into his tone. Check the foundation's books. Ask Isabella where she got the money for that new Maserati she bought last month. Then ask yourself if you really want to marry someone who's been stealing from you for years. Alex was quiet for a moment, and I could see his mind working, processing this new information alongside everything else we'd learned in the past 24 hours. Even if what you're saying is true, Alex said finally, that doesn't change anything between Emma and me, doesn't it? Mike's laugh was cold and bitter. Because I have something that will change everything. I have Emma. The phone went dead. And for a moment, we all just stared at each other in horror. What does he mean? He has Emma, Dad asked weakly. Emma's right here. That's when I realized what Mike meant, and my blood turned to ice water in my veins. Jessica. Oh my God, he has Jessica. I fumbled for my phone, calling my roommate with hands that shook so badly I could barely hit the right buttons. It went straight to voicemail. Then I tried her work number, her backup phone, even her mother in San Diego. Nothing. Emma, what's going on? Alex asked, but I was already pulling up the Find My Phone app, tracking Jessica's location. The little dot that represented my best friend was moving north on I-71, heading toward Delaware County. Away from the city, away from help, away from anyone who might be able to save her. He's taken Jessica, I said, my voice barely recognizing. He's using her to get to me. Alex was already on his phone, speaking in rapid, clipped sentences too. Someone who was apparently very good at finding people quickly. Security teams, I realize. Private investigators. The kind of resources that came with being a billionaire. Dad, I have to go, I said, leaning down to kiss his forehead. The surgery team will take good care of you, and I'll be back as soon as I can. Emma, no, Dad said, gripping my hand with surprising strength. Don't go to him. It's what he wants. What they want? They? Alex looked up from his phone call. Victoria and Mike, Dad said quietly. They've been working together. This whole thing, Emma's pregnancy, the clinic mix-up, Mike inserting himself into her life. It was all planned. Victoria wanted to make sure that if you and Emma ever found each other again, it would be under circumstances that would destroy you both. The full scope of the conspiracy hit me like a tidal wave. Victoria Sterling hadn't just broken us up. 6 years ago, she'd spent years orchestrating a scenario where our reunion would be so catastrophic that we'd never be able to trust each other again. A pregnancy that looked like manipulation. A dangerous stalker who appeared to be protecting me. A financial crisis that would make me look like a gold digger. And now a kidnapping that would force Alex to choose between his old love and his new life. She's going to be at the exchange point, Alex said grimly, ending his call. My security team is tracking Mike's vehicle, and they're also monitoring Victoria's private jet. She left Boston 2 hours ago, heading for Ohio. This is all my fault, I said, the weight of 6 years of deception and manipulation crushing down on me. If I hadn't been so scared, if I just told you the truth from the beginning, no, Alex said firmly, taking my face in his hands, this is not your fault. This is the fault of people who think they can control other people's lives for their own benefit. But Emma, I need you to understand something. His eyes were intense, burning with the same passion I remember from our college days. Whatever happens next, whatever we have to face, we face it together. I'm not losing you again. I'm not losing our child. And I'm sure as hell not letting Mike Davidson hurt your friend. Alex, it's too dangerous. Victoria and Mike, they're desperate now. They'll do anything to... Let them try, Alex said, and there was something hard and unforgiving in his voice. I've spent 6 years building an empire, Emma. I have resources, connections, and a very good reason to use them. Nobody threatens my family and gets away with it. My family. He called us his family. A nurse appeared in the doorway, looking apologetic but determined. Mr. Harrison needs to prep for surgery now. I'm sorry, but you'll need to step out. I looked at my father, lying in that hospital bed, frail and scared and finally telling the truth after 6 years of lies. Dad, I love you. And when this is all over, we're going to have a long talk about honesty and making better choices. He smiled weakly. Your mother will be proud of the woman you've become, Emma. Don't let anyone make you feel small ever again. As we left the cardiac unit, Alex was already coordinating with his security team. Apparently, being a billionaire meant having access to resources that bordered on the miraculous. Within minutes, he'd assembled a plan that involved helicopters, private security, and what sounded like a small army of people who specialized in extraction scenarios. The exchange point is an abandoned warehouse complex about 40 miles north of here, Alex explained as we hurried toward the elevator. Mike's demanding that you come alone, but there's no way in hell that's happening. Alex, we can't risk Jessica's life. If he sees other people, he won't see them, Alex said grimly. I've been dealing with corporate espionage and hostile takeovers for years, Emma. I know how to handle dangerous people. As we reached the ground floor, Alex's phone rang again. This time, it was a number I recognized. Victoria Sterling. Answer it, I said, surprising myself with my determination. Put it on speaker. I want to hear what she has to say for herself. Alex swiped to accept the call and immediately hit the speaker button. Victoria Sterling's cultured Boston accent filled the elevator. Alexander, darling, I understand you've been having quite an adventure today. Mother. Alex's voice was ice cold. I know what you did. All of it. The bribes, the manipulation, the surveillance. It's over. Victoria's laugh was like crystal breaking. Oh, my dear boy, it's far from over. You see, you have a choice to make. You can marry Isabella as planned. Forget about that little waitress and her bastard child and live the life you were born to live. Or you can watch as everyone you care about pays the price for your stubbornness. Isabella's been stealing from my company, Alex said bluntly. So much for your perfect daughter-in-law. Isabella made some poor choices, yes, Victoria admitted, without missing a beat. But nothing that can't be handled quietly with the right financial arrangements. Unlike the situation you've created with Miss Harrison. We stepped out of the elevator into the hospital lobby, and I could see Alex's security team assembling near the entrance. Men in dark suits with the kind of calm, competent demeanor that suggested they were very good at handling impossible situations. What do you want, Mother? Alex asked. I want you to remember who you are, Victoria said, her voice taking on a steel edge. You are a Sterling. You don't throw away your heritage for some pregnant girl from Ohio. You certainly don't risk everything. You built for a child that was conceived through medical malpractice. That child is my son or daughter, Alex said quietly. And Emma is the woman I've loved for 6 years, even when I thought she betrayed me. Love, Victoria spat. You think love will sustain you when the tabloids discover that your girlfriend got pregnant through stolen sperm samples? You think love will protect your company when the lawsuits start flying? You think love will matter when your reputation is destroyed and your business empire crumbles? I felt sick listening to her. understanding for the first time the level of calculation and cruelty that had gone into destroying our relationship. This wasn't just snobbery or class prejudice. This was systematic psychological warfare. The only thing being destroyed today is your hold over my life, Alex said. Where's Jessica Martinez? Safe for now, Victoria said smoothly. Mr. Davidson is quite devoted to Miss Harrison, you know. He's been reporting to me for years about her well-being, making sure she was properly supervised, and protected from making any more foolish choices. Supervised? I couldn't keep quiet anymore. You had me stalked for 6 years. Supervised, my dear, Victoria corrected. You were always prone to poor judgment. Your father's gambling addiction, your choice of romantic partners, your decision to pursue surrogacy instead of finding a respectable husband. Someone needed to ensure you didn't make things worse for everyone involved. Alex's security team leader, a stern-looking man in his 50s, approached us with a tablet showing satellite imagery. Sir, we've located the warehouse. Thermal imaging shows 3 heat signatures inside, likely the hostage and 2 captors. We can have a team in position within 30 minutes. Do it, Alex said without hesitation. Alexander, if you involve law enforcement, Mr. Davidson has been instructed to disappear with Miss Martinez, Victoria said coldly. And I'm afraid there will be other consequences as well. It would be such a shame if your father's financial irregularities came to light. Posthumously. Tax evasion, embezzlement from the family foundation, enough to destroy the Sterling name permanently. Alex went very still. My father's been dead for 17 years. Yes, but financial records can be ... discovered at any time. Documents that show he was stealing from his own company to fund a gambling addiction. Bank records that suggest you've been covering up his crimes all these years to protect your inheritance. I watched Alex's face as he processed what his mother was really saying. She was threatening to destroy his father's memory, to rewrite history in a way that would make James Sterling look like a criminal and Alex like an accomplice. You wouldn't, Alex said, but there was uncertainty in his voice. I would do anything to protect this family's reputation, Victoria said simply, including protecting you from yourself. Come to the warehouse alone, Alexander. Bring Miss Harrison. Leave your security team behind. And maybe we can resolve this situation without anyone getting hurt. The line went dead, leaving us standing in the hospital lobby surrounded by Alex's security team and the weight of impossible choices. She's lying about my father, Alex said finally, but he didn't sound entirely convinced. He was a good man. He built Sterling International with integrity. Maybe he was a good man, I said gently. But addiction makes good people do terrible things. Look at my father. Alex's security team leader cleared his throat. Sir, with respect, walking into that warehouse without backup would be suicide. We need to call local law enforcement, set up a perimeter. No, Alex said decisively. We do this Victoria's way, but with modifications she won't see coming. He turned to me, his expression serious but determined. Emma, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? I looked at this man who'd become a billionaire CEO, but was still willing to risk everything to save my best friend, who'd learned that his mother had been manipulating both our lives for years, but was still trying to protect me and our unborn child. Yes, I said simply. I trust you. Good, Alex said, pulling out his phone. Because we're about to give Victoria Sterling the performance of a lifetime. Word count so far, approximately 4,200 words, continuing in next section, the plan Alex. Outlined during our drive to the warehouse was elegant in its simplicity and terrifying in its implications. We would appear to comply with Victoria's demands while his security team positioned themselves strategically around the perimeter. Advanced surveillance equipment would monitor the situation, and if things went wrong, they were authorized to use whatever force was necessary to extract us safely. The key is making them believe they've won, Alex explained as we drove through the Ohio countryside in a rental car that looked deliberately unremarkable. Victoria wants to see me broken, choosing between my heritage and my heart. Mike wants to see you grateful enough to choose him over me. We give them exactly what they expect to see until it's too late for them to react. I was trying to stay calm, but every bump in the road reminded me that I was 6 months pregnant and driving. Toward a confrontation with people who'd already proven they were willing to destroy lives to get what they wanted. Alex, what if something goes wrong? What if they hurt Jessica? They won't, Alex said with the kind of confidence that came from years of high-stakes business negotiations. Victoria needs Jessica alive to maintain leverage, and Mike needs her unharmed to prove he's not the monster we know he is. Their entire plan depends on appearing reasonable while manipulating us into compliance. The warehouse complex appeared ahead of us, a sprawling collection of abandoned industrial buildings that looked like something out of a post-apocalyptic movie. Broken windows, rusted metal siding, and parking lots cracked with weeds growing through the asphalt. The kind of place where people could disappear without anyone noticing. Alex parked the car exactly where Victoria had instructed, in front of the main building where a single light glowed in what appeared to be an office. Window. His hand found mine in the darkness of the car, warm and steady despite everything we were facing. Before we go in there, he said quietly, I need you to know something. Whatever happens tonight, whatever we have to do or say to get through, none of it changes how I feel about you. I loved you 6 years ago. I love you now, and I'm going to love you for the rest of my life. My throat tightened with emotion. Alex, let me finish, he said gently. I know you think you destroyed us back then to protect my future. And maybe you did protect my financial future. But Emma, you are my future. You and our baby. Everything else is just money and buildings and things that don't matter without people to share them with. Before I could respond, he was out of the car and coming around to help me out. My legs felt shaky as we approached the warehouse, but Alex's presence beside me was like an anchor in a storm. The warehouse door opened before we could knock, revealing Mike Davidson in all his delusional glory. He traded his security uniform for dark jeans and a black sweater, probably thinking it made him look dangerous instead of just sad. His eyes were bright with an excitement that made my skin crawl. Emma, he said, like he was greeting a lover instead of a woman he'd been stalking for years. I'm so glad you came. And Sterling, I have to admit, I'm impressed. Most billionaires would have sent lawyers instead of showing up personally. Where's Jessica? Alex asked without preamble. Safe, Mike said, stepping aside to let us into the warehouse. She's fine, just tied up in the back office. No harm done, as long as everyone behaves reasonably. The interior of the warehouse was a maze of abandoned equipment and makeshift lighting that cast everything in harsh shadows. But what caught my attention immediately was the woman sitting in a chair near the back of the space, looking perfectly composed despite the fact that she was in an abandoned building in the middle of nowhere. Victoria Sterling had aged well, which shouldn't have surprised me. Money could buy a lot of things, including the kind of healthcare and cosmetics that kept wealthy women looking decades younger than their actual age. She was wearing a perfectly tailored coat that probably cost more than most people's cars, and her silver hair was styled in a way that managed to look elegant even in a warehouse. Emma, dear, she said, her voice carrying that same condescending warmth I remember from 6 years ago. You look well. Pregnancy suits you. Mrs. Sterling, I replied, keeping my voice level. I wish I could say it was nice to see you again. Victoria! Laugh, a sound like expensive jewelry being rattled in a box. Oh, my dear, I'm sure you do. I imagine you've harbored quite a bit of resentment over the years. But surely now you can see that everything I did was for the best. Look at what Alexander has accomplished. Look at the empire he's built. Would any of that have been possible if he'd been tied down to a waitress and her family's problems? You're right, I said, and Alex shot me a sharp look. But this was part of the plan, playing into Victoria's expectations until we could turn the tables. Alex is incredibly successful now. He's built something amazing. Victoria smiled triumphantly. Exactly. And now he's about to marry Isabella Cross, a young woman from a good family who can help him reach even greater heights. This little ... situation with the pregnancy is unfortunate, but it can be handled discreetly. Financial support for the child, a quiet adoption perhaps, or simply a generous settlement that allows you to raise the baby privately. What about Jessica? Alex asked. What happens to her in this scenario? Mike stepped forward, his chest puffed out like he was the hero of this story instead of a delusional stalker. Jessica goes back to her life in California. Emma comes with me, somewhere quiet where we can start fresh. Maybe Montana or Wyoming, somewhere with wide open spaces where we can raise the baby away from all this drama. The casual way he talked about kidnapping my best friend and forcing me to relocate to another state was chilling. But what was even more chilling was the way Victoria was nodding along like this was all perfectly reasonable. Of course, you'll need to sign some legal documents, Victoria continued, pulling a manila folder from her designer purse. Non-disclosure agreements, custody arrangements, financial settlements, everything neat and tidy. And if we refuse? Alex asked. Victoria's smile turned cold. Then Jessica Martinez dies in a tragic accident. Your father's reputation is destroyed posthumously. Your company faces federal investigation for financial crimes, and Emma and her father go to prison for fraud and conspiracy. What fraud? I asked, though I was afraid of the answer. The surrogacy fraud, dear, Victoria said sweetly. You see, the sperm sample mix-up wasn't accidental. Mike has documented evidence that you specifically requested Alexander's sample, that you paid clinic staff to ensure the switch happened, all part of an elaborate scheme to trap a billionaire with an unplanned pregnancy. My blood went cold. That's not true. Truth is relative, Victoria replied. What matters is what can be proven in court. And Mike has been very thorough in creating a paper trail that shows you deliberately orchestrated this entire situation. Mike pulled out a tablet and showed us photos that made my stomach lurch. They were obviously doctored, but skillfully done. Images that appeared to show me meeting with clinic staff, documents that looked like payment records, even audio recordings. That sounded like my voice discussing the sperm switch. Jesus Christ, Alex breathed, staring at the fabricated evidence. You've been planning this for years. We've been protecting the Sterling family legacy, Victoria corrected. Something you seem incapable of doing yourself. That's when I heard it, a soft sound from the back of the warehouse that made my heart jump. Jessica, calling my name weakly. She was hurt or scared or both, and the sound of her voice made me want to murder both Victoria and Mike with my bare hands. Let me see her, I demanded. Let me see that she's okay, and then we'll talk about your documents. Mike looked pleased, like my concern for Jessica proved his point about my character. Of course, right this way. He led us through the maze of abandoned equipment toward the back of the warehouse, where a makeshift office had been set up with folding chairs and battery-powered lights. And there, tied to a chair, but apparently unharmed, was Jessica. My best friend looked exhausted and scared, but her eyes lit up with relief when she saw me. Emma, thank God you're okay. When Mike showed up at our apartment saying you were in trouble, I thought, I know, sweetie, I said, rushing to her side. I'm going to get you out of here. But as I knelt beside Jessica's chair, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Her hands weren't just tied, they were zip-tied so tightly that her fingers were turning blue. And there was a small device attached to her ankle that looked suspiciously like the ankle monitors used for house arrest. What's that? I asked, pointing to the device. Mike's expression darkened. Insurance. GPS tracker with a small explosive charge? Nothing major, just enough to ensure compliance. If anyone tries to remove it, or if we don't input the disarm code, every 12 hours, well, let's just say Jessica will have a very bad day. Alex was very still beside me, but I could feel the rage radiating from him like heat from a furnace. You put a bomb on her? A small one, Victoria said dismissively, as if the size of the explosive device made it more reasonable. Really? Alexander, don't be so dramatic. It's simply a precaution to ensure that everyone follows through on their commitments. You're both insane, I said, standing up slowly. My hands were shaking with fury, but I forced myself to stay calm for Jessica's sake. We're practical, Mike corrected. Emma, you've been living in a fantasy for years, thinking you could run away from your problems and start over. But the past always catches up, doesn't it? Now you have a choice. Come with me willingly, and Jessica goes free. Fight us, and she dies. Alex pulled out his phone, and for a moment I thought he was going to call his security team. Instead, he showed us the screen, a financial app showing his personal bank account balance. $2 billion, he said quietly. That's what I'm worth on paper. I could give you anything you want. Money, property, a new identity, a private island. Name your price. Victoria laughed. Oh, Alexander, you still don't understand. This isn't about money. This is about control. This is about ensuring that you make the right choices for your family's legacy. And I'm about ensuring that you understand the consequences of your choices, Alex replied, his voice carrying a steel edge I'd never heard before. That's when I noticed something. Victoria and Mike had missed in their arrogance. Alex's phone wasn't just showing his bank balance, it was also showing an active call. A call that had been running for the past 10 minutes, broadcasting everything we'd heard to someone on the other end. You've been recording this entire conversation, I realized. Alex smiled grimly. Federal agents don't usually need warrants. When they're dealing with kidnapping, extortion, and conspiracy charges, Victoria's face went pale. You wouldn't dare. The scandal would destroy you too. Maybe, Alex said. But some things are more important than avoiding scandal, like protecting the people I love. That's when all hell broke loose. Mike lunged for his tablet, probably trying to delete the fabricated evidence, but Alex was faster. They crashed into a stack of equipment, metal clanging as they fought for control of the device. Victoria was screaming something about legal immunity and family privilege, but her voice was drowned out by the sound of vehicles surrounding the warehouse. FBI, nobody move! The voice came from a speaker outside, amplified and commanding. Through the windows, I could see tactical lights illuminating the building like it was daytime. Emma, the ankle device, Jessica called out. Mike said something about a dead man's switch. My blood turned to ice. If Mike was incapacitated or killed, the bomb would trigger automatically. I rushed to where he and Alex were still fighting, searching desperately for the control device. Mike, where's the disarm code? He looked up at me with wild eyes, blood streaming from his nose where Alex had hit him. It's too late, Emma. If I can't have you, nobody can. And that's when I realized that Mike Davidson had never intended for any of us to leave this warehouse alive. The ankle bomb, the dead man's switch, the elaborate scheme, it was all designed to end in a murder-suicide that would destroy everyone he blamed for his miserable life. But Mike had made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated exactly how far. A billionaire was willing to go to protect his family, Alex's security. Team didn't wait for the FBI. They came through the windows like something out of an action movie, rappelling from helicopters and coordinating with the federal agents outside. Within seconds, the warehouse was swarming with people who clearly knew what they were doing. Bomb disposal unit is en route, one of the agents called out. ETA 3 minutes. 3 minutes to disarm an explosive device attached to my best friend's ankle. 3 minutes to prevent Mike Davidson from taking everyone down with him in his final act of twisted revenge. The code, Alex said, grabbing Mike by his shirt and lifting him off the ground. Give me the disarm code, and maybe you live through this. Mike's laugh was hysterical. You think you've won? You think money and power can fix everything? Emma will never love you the way she loved the man you used to be. And your mother's right. This scandal will destroy everything you've built. Maybe, Alex said calmly. But I'd rather have love and scandal than success and emptiness. That's when Victoria Sterling made her final play. She pulled a small pistol from her designer purse, pointing it directly at my chest. "Nobody moves," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos around us. "Alexander, call off your people. Tell the FBI this is all a misunderstanding. Do it now or I shoot the pregnant girl." The warehouse went dead silent, except for the sound of my heart hammering in my chest. Through my peripheral vision, I could see federal agents moving into position, but none of them had a clear shot at Victoria without risking hitting me or... "Jessica, mother, put the gun down," Alex said quietly. "This is over. This is over when I say it's over," Victoria replied. "I have spent my entire life protecting the Sterling family legacy. I will not let it be destroyed by some waitress from Ohio and her bastard child." "That bastard child is your grandchild," I said, my hand instinctively moving to protect my belly. "Your son's baby, your own flesh and blood." Victoria's hand trembled slightly, but the gun remained pointed at me. "That child is a mistake, a complication that threatens everything we've worked for." "No," Alex said, stepping forward slowly. "That child is the future, my future, our future." The bomb disposal unit burst through the door at that moment, their equipment cases clanging against the concrete floor. But Victoria swung the gun toward them, forcing them to stop. "Nobody moves until we resolve this family matter," she said, her voice taking on the imperious tone she probably used to control Alex's entire life. That's when Mike made his final, desperate move, with Alex momentarily distracted by his mother's gun. Mike lunged for a device on his belt. The dead man switched for Jessica's ankle bomb. But Jessica, my brilliant, resourceful best friend, had been working on her restraints the entire time. The moment Mike moved, she kicked out with both legs, sending him sprawling across the concrete floor. The device skittered away into the shadows. "Now," one of the FBI agents shouted. "Everything happened at once." Alex tackled his mother, wrestling the gun away from her as federal agents swarmed the area. The bomb disposal team surrounded Jessica, their equipment already scanning the device on her ankle. And Mike Davidson, bleeding and broken, was dragged away in handcuffs while screaming incoherently about love and betrayal. "The device is standard commercial grade," the bomb disposal expert announced. "We can disarm it, but we need everyone, except essential personnel to evacuate the building." "I'm not leaving Jessica," I said firmly. "Emma, you're pregnant," Alex said, his hair disheveled from fighting with his mother, but his eyes clear and determined. "You need to get somewhere safe." "I'm not leaving my best friend with a bomb attached to her leg," I replied. End of discussion. Alex looked like he wanted to argue, but then he nodded. Then we stayed together. The next 20 minutes were the longest of my life. Victoria was led away in handcuffs, ranting about family honor and ungrateful children. Mike was secured in a federal vehicle, still trying to convince anyone who would listen that he'd been protecting me from my own poor judgment. And Jessica sat perfectly still while experts worked to disarm an explosive device that could have killed us all. "Emma," Jessica said quietly while the technicians worked, "there's something you should know about Mike. He's been drugging my coffee at work for months." My blood went cold. "What?" "Mild sedatives, mood stabilizers." I thought I was just stressed, but I started feeling better when I switched to tea. "He's been medicating me to make me more compliant, more willing to report back to him about your life." The full scope of Mike's manipulation hit me like a physical blow. Not only had he been stalking me for years, but he'd been drugging my best friend to ensure her cooperation. "Done," the bomb disposal expert announced, carefully removing the device from Jessica's ankle. "Building is secure." The relief was so overwhelming that I actually fell to my knees, all the stress and fear of the past 24 hours hitting me at once. Alex was beside me immediately, his arms around me as I sobbed into his shoulder. "It's over," he whispered into my hair. "It's finally over." But even as he said it, I knew it wasn't really over. There would be trials, media attention, and the complicated work of rebuilding our relationship after 6 years of deception and manipulation. Victoria Sterling would likely spend the rest of her life in federal prison, and Mike Davidson would face charges for kidnapping, stalking, and assault. Most importantly, Alex and I had to figure out how to be a family. 3 months later, the media circus surrounding what the tabloids call the Sterling baby scandal was even worse than Victoria had predicted. Every detail of our relationship, the clinic mix-up, and the dramatic warehouse confrontation was dissected endlessly by reporters, bloggers, and social media influencers. But something funny happened during those months of relentless publicity. Instead of destroying Alex's reputation, the story actually humanized him. The public fell in love with the idea of a billionaire who gave up his engagement to a socialite to be with his pregnant ex-girlfriend from Ohio. Sterling Aviation's stock price actually went up as customers decided they wanted to fly with an airline owned by someone who chose love over money. Alex and I were taking things slowly, attending couples therapy twice a week and working through 6 years of hurt, anger, and misunderstanding. Dr. Patricia Nakamura was helping us learn how to communicate without the fear and manipulation that had poisoned our relationship the first time around. My father survived his heart attack and was now 6 months sober, attending Gamblers Anonymous meetings and working to make amends for the damage his addiction had caused. The federal prosecutors had decided not to charge him in exchange for his testimony against Victoria, but he was paying back every penny she'd given him over the years. Isabella Cross had been arrested for embezzlement and was facing her own legal troubles. Apparently, she'd been stealing from Sterling Aviation's charitable foundation for months, using the money to fund a gambling addiction that made my father's problems look minor, and Jessica was thriving in a new job as head of marketing for a tech startup in San Francisco, finally free from Mike's manipulation and drugs. She visited every few weeks, claiming she needed to make sure Sterling was treating me right, but really just wanting to feel the baby kick. I was now 8 months pregnant and living in Alex's penthouse in Los Angeles. Not because he pressured me to move in, but because we decided we wanted to wake up next to each other every morning and figure out this whole family thing together. Emma, Alex called from the kitchen, where he was attempting to make pancakes from scratch because I'd mentioned craving them. Your doctor called. She wants to schedule the final ultrasound for next week. Okay, I called back, struggling to get out of the ridiculously comfortable recliner he bought specifically for my pregnancy needs. Did she say anything else? Alex appeared in the doorway, flower in his hair and a smile on his face that still made my heart skip beats. She said, "Everything looks perfect. Healthy baby, healthy mom, and we're right on schedule for delivery." He crossed the room and knelt beside my chair, placing his hands gently on my enormous belly. "How are you feeling about becoming parents in less than a month?" "Terrified," I admitted. "What if we mess this up? What if all the therapy in the world can't undo the damage from what happened between us?" Alex was quiet for a moment, his hands moving gently as the baby shifted inside me. "You know what I think?" "What?" "I think we're not the same people we were 6 years ago. We've both been through hell, we both made mistakes, and we both learned what really matters. Maybe that makes us better prepared for this than we would have been back then." "Maybe," I said, covering his hands with mine. "Alex, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you really think we can make this work? Not just as co-parents, but as a couple? As a family?" He looked up at me with those blue eyes that had captured my heart when I was 19 and never really let it go. "Emma Harrison, I've loved you for 10 years. I'm going to love you for the next 50 years. And I'm going to love our children. And maybe even their children. This isn't just about making it work. This is about building something beautiful together." That's when the baby kicked hard enough to make both of us laugh, like he was agreeing with his father's assessment of our future. We got married at the small airport in Columbus, where Alex had first learned to fly, surrounded by 100 of Our closest family and friends. Not the society wedding Victoria had planned for Alex and Isabella, but something real and meaningful in ours. I wore my grandmother's dress, altered to fit my post-baby body, and carried wildflowers that Alex had picked himself that morning. He wore a simple navy suit and the same nervous smile he'd had the day he'd given me that promise ring 8 years ago. Our son James Robert, Sterling, named for Alex's father and mine, slept peacefully in my arms during the ceremony, occasionally, opening his dark blue eyes to stare at his parents with the kind of serious expression that suggested he was already planning to take over the world someday. Do you, Alexander Sterling, take Emma Harrison to be your wife, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, through family scandals and federal investigations, through morning sickness and sleepless nights, for as long as you both shall. Live, Alex's laugh was pure joy. I do. Forever and always I do. And do you, Emma Harrison, take Alexander Sterling to be your husband, promising to love him even when he burns breakfast, to support his dreams even when they involve buying more airplanes than any reasonable person needs, and to remind him that money can't buy happiness, but it can buy really comfortable baby cribs? I do, I said, tears streaming down my face. I do. When Alex kissed me, baby James made a small sound of protest at being squished between his parents, which made everyone laugh and cry at the same time. The reception was held in the airplane hangar, with Sterling Aviation jets serving as a backdrop for our celebration. Alex had arranged for a small air show during dinner, with pilots spelling out love winds in the sky above Ohio. During our first dance, Alex whispered in my ear, "I have a surprise for you." "What kind of surprise?" He spun me around gently, mindful of the baby sleeping in his carrier nearby. "I bought us a house. Alex, the penthouse is beautiful." "We don't need, not just any house," he interrupted, his eyes twinkling. "A house in Ohio, about 20 minutes from here, with a view of the sky and a yard big enough for James to learn to play baseball. And maybe for his little brother or sister to learn too someday." My heart stopped. "You want to move back to Ohio?" "I want to be wherever you and James are happiest," Alex said simply. "My company can be run from anywhere, and I think our son should grow up knowing where his parents fell in love." "What about the scandal? The media attention?" Alex's smile was soft and certain. "Let them talk. We know who we are and what we built together. Besides, I have a feeling the people of Ohio will be more interested in whether I'm good enough for you than whether you're good enough for me." As we swayed to the music, surrounded by family and friends who'd stood by us through everything, I looked around at the life we built from the ashes of our first relationship. My father, sober and proud, dancing with Jessica and making her laugh. Alex's cousin David, who'd become the brother Alex had never had, holding baby James and making silly faces that kept our son entertained. Even some of Alex's business associates were there, people who'd stuck with Sterling Aviation despite the scandal and who genuinely seemed to care about Alex's happiness more than his bank account. "Emma," Alex said, pulling me closer, "I need you to know something." "What?" "Every plane in my fleet, every building I own, every success I've achieved, none of it matters compared to this moment. Compared to you, to James, to the family we're building. You didn't ruin my life 6 years ago when you pushed me away. You saved it, and then you came back and made it complete." "Alex, let me finish," he said gently. "I know we still have work to do. I know there will be challenges ahead, sleepless nights with the baby, disagreements about how to raise him, maybe even more media attention. But Emma, I would rather face every challenge in the world with you than enjoy every success without you." The song ended, but we kept dancing, lost in each other and the promise of the future we were building together. Baby James slept peacefully nearby, surrounded by people who would love and protect him his entire life. "So," I said, looking up, "and my husband, what's next for the Sterling family?" Alex's grin was pure mischief. Well, first we're going to finish building that house in Ohio. Then we're going to teach James to fly when he's old enough. And somewhere in between, we're going to keep falling in love with each other every single day." "That sounds perfect," I said. And minute dot as the evening wound down and our guests began to leave, Alex and I stood outside the hangar holding our sun and watching the stars appear over Ohio. It was the same sky we dreamed under as teenagers. The same stars we made wishes on when we thought love could conquer anything. Turns out we were right. "Daddy, when can I fly the big plane?" James Sterling was 5 years old, with his father's dark hair and his mother's stubborn streak, currently perched on Alex's shoulders as we toured the newest addition to the Sterling aviation fleet. His baby sister Sarah was strapped to my chest, in a carrier, sleeping peacefully despite the noise of the airplane hangar. "When you're much, much older," Alex replied, reaching up to ruffle his son's hair. "And only after you learn to fly the small planes first." "But I already know how to fly," James protested. "I fly my toy planes all the time." "Flying toy planes and flying real planes are very different things," I said, adjusting Sarah's blanket. "Real planes require licenses and training and lots of practice, like how you and Daddy had to practice being married." Alex and I exchanged glances over that one. James had an unsettling ability to pick up on adult conversations and repeat them at the most inconvenient moments. "Something like that," Alex said diplomatically. The Sterling Aviation headquarters in Columbus had grown into a small campus, employing over 300 people and serving as the base for one of the most successful private aviation companies in the country. But Alex had kept his promise about work-life balance. He was home for dinner every night, never missed a school play or soccer game, and still made pancakes every Sunday morning. "Mrs. Sterling?" One of the office managers approached us with a tablet. "The documentary crew is here for the final interview." Alex grimaced. "I still can't believe you talked me into this." "It'll be good for the company," I said. Though honestly, I wasn't thrilled about the idea either. And maybe it'll finally put all the speculation to rest. The documentary was called Love Takes Flight, the Sterling Aviation Story, and it covered everything from Alex's early struggles as a pilot to the warehouse, confrontation to our current life in Ohio. The producers had promised to focus on the business success rather than the personal drama, but I wasn't entirely convinced they'd keep that promise. "Besides," I added, bouncing Sarah gently as she started to fuss, "James keeps asking why there are pictures of Mommy and Daddy on the internet. Maybe this way he'll understand the story when he's older." "I understand the story now," James announced, from his perch on Alex's shoulders. "Grandma Victoria was mean to Mommy, so Daddy saved her, and then they got married and had me." "That's actually a pretty accurate summary," Alex said, looking impressed. We made our way to the conference room where the documentary crew was setting up. The same conference room where 3 years ago Alex had proposed to me properly with a ring that wasn't from a pawn shop and a speech that made me cry for 20 minutes. "Mr. and Mrs. Sterling," the director greeted us warmly. "Thank you so much for doing this. I know it's not easy to discuss such personal matters publicly." "It's fine," Alex said, settling into his chair while I got the baby situated. "We've learned that the truth is usually better than letting people speculate." The interview covered familiar ground: our college relationship, the breakup, the medical mix-up, the confrontation with Victoria and Mike. But then the director asked a question that caught us both off guard. 5 years later, do you ever regret the way things happened? Do you ever wonder what your lives would have been like if you'd stayed together the first time? Alex and I looked at each other, having one of those wordless conversations that married. "Couples perfect over time? No," I said finally. "I don't regret it. Not anymore." "Really?" the director pressed. "Not even the 6 years you lost?" "We didn't lose 6 years," Alex said, reaching over to take my hand. "We spent 6 years becoming the people we needed to be to make this work. If we'd stayed together at 22, we might have been happy, but we wouldn't have been ready for the challenges that came later." "What kind of challenges?" I laughed, glancing at James, who was now sitting in the corner building something elaborate with blocks while Sarah slept in her carrier. Try raising 2 kids while running a billion-dollar company and dealing with family scandal. Our 22-year-old selves would have cracked under the pressure. But your 30-something selves? Our 30-something selves are stubborn enough to make it work, Alex said, squeezing my hand. Plus, we have better communication skills now. And therapy, I added. Lots and lots of therapy, the director laughed. One final question. What advice would you give to other couples facing seemingly impossible obstacles? Alex was quiet for a moment, watching James stack blocks into what appeared to be an airplane hangar. Don't give up on love, but don't expect love to solve everything either. Do the work. Have the hard conversations. Get help when you need it. And remember that the best things in life are worth fighting for, even if the fight takes 6 years. The director asked. Especially if the fight takes 6 years, I said, looking at my husband and children and the life we built together. The best things are always worth the wait. After the crew left, Alex and I sat in the conference room, while the kids played, watching the sun set over Columbus through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Any regrets? Alex asked quietly. I thought about Victoria Sterling, now serving a 15-year sentence in federal prison. About Mike Davidson, who was getting the psychological help he should have received years earlier. About Isabella Cross, who'd actually thanked me in a letter from her minimum security facility for saving Alex from making the biggest mistake of his life. I thought about my father, who was coming up on 3 years sober and worked as a counselor for other gambling addicts. About Jessica, who was engaged to a wonderful man she met at her new job and who would be Sarah's godmother next month. I thought about the house Alex had built for us 20 minutes outside of Columbus, with its view of the sky and its yard full of children's laughter. About the business we'd built together, the family we created, and the love that had survived everything life could throw at it. No regrets, I said firmly. Not a single one. Alex pulled me closer, careful not to wake the baby sleeping against my chest. I love you, Emma Sterling. I love you too, Alexander Sterling. Forever and always. Outside, one of Sterling Aviation's jets took off into the Ohio sunset, carrying passengers to their own adventures, their own love stories, their own second chances. And inside the hangar, 2 former college sweethearts held their children and planned their future, knowing that the best stories are the ones that take the long way around but always find their way home.